Time having arrived, I call this regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council's Finance Committee to order. Will you all please join me in standing and saluting the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Item number 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the August 14th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting.
Accept and place on file.
Item number 2, we have the appointment of Stephen Kelly of Brockton, Mass. to the Elections Commission as a commissioner for a 4-year term ending August 2027.
Councilors, while Mr. Kelly comes up here, I do need to state that obviously I am not Madam President. Councilor Nicastro is out of state on a family matter, and Councilor Rodriguez has been called away on a last-minute work matter. Additionally, the mayor is an invited guest on several of these items. The mayor has reached out to say that he is at a family item right now. Thank you. Mr. Kelly, good evening. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the councilors?
Well, I'm looking forward to this opportunity to serve the residents of Brockton. You know, I've been part of the elections process in this city for many years, and I've met all of you at certain times over the years, and it's something I think that elections matter. And being an elections commissioner, I think I'm qualified for it. You know, I've served in a lot of different positions, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Motion to recommend favorably to the full City Council.
Motion is properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Item number 3, we have the appointment of George DePina of Brockton, Mass. to the position of Chief of Inspections for the City of Brockton for a 5-year term ending July 2028. Invited, George DePina.
Good evening, Mr. DePina.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm first like to say I'm honored and humbled to be here before you tonight, seeking confirmation for the Chief of Inspection Services within the City of Brockton. I've worked with the city, under the City of Brockton for the past 3 years as a local building inspector under Superintendent Pluff. I'm a licensed ICC local building inspector with prior experience within the construction trades for over 20 years. Prior to coming to the building department, I worked for the city's DPW department under Larry Rowley, where I rose to a position of working foreman within the span of 3 years. I am a current member of the MHOA, the Mass Health Officers Association, as well as an active member of SEMBOA, the Southern Massachusetts Building Association. I would like to thank Mayor Sullivan, Superintendent Pluff, as well as the City Council for the opportunity to be here tonight in seeking confirmation. Public service is a privilege and responsibility, one that I don't take lightly. I'm sure with my past experience, as well as my technical knowledge, that I can be a great asset to the City of Brockton.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. DePina. How are you today?
Doing well.
Just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you over the last few years. You know, you've been really helpful in your capacity as ordinance inspector, or what?
I served under the. I represented the building department on the Mayor's Quality of Life Task Force, which gave me the opportunity to oversee a lot of the ins and outs of inspectional services within the City of Brockton. Okay,
so just that kind of leads me to my question. So how do you see this new inspectional services department? How do you see it kind of, you know, practically working over the next couple of years? You know, how do you see your job as head of that department? Just if you could talk to that.
I see it being a very integral part of the city's ordinances and the city's responsibility to its constituents. ISD is going to be an umbrella department, bringing in the fire department, bringing in Board of Health, bringing in the building department, help us get a cohesion and an organization skills that we can bring and we can better serve the community.
Have you been doing any working that job right now, or
yes,
unofficially?
Yes, I've been acting in this capacity for the past month and a half.
And what do you see some of the biggest inspectional services issues in our city?
Within the department itself, standardization, bringing a level of professionalism to the position. And right now, that's the main goal that we're trying to achieve right now.
And then at some point, I know you've been working with our fellow city councilors on some ordinances to kind of bring some issues that you've probably seen in your capacity as going out into the city, checking out the quality of life. I think the recent fence ordinance, our recent, the storage container ordinances, those, I know you were working with the council on that issue. Would you see your job as kind of doing a little bit more of that, kind of getting out to the city, seeing where we're lacking as on ordinances and code issues that need to be enforced? I mean, do you see that as part of your job as well?
Yes, I definitely see that as part of my job. On the big picture, the city has certain objectives that they're trying to reach. ISD can fulfill those. And my capacity as a Chief of Inspection Services, we can add to that.
Great.
Yeah.
I think you're going to do an amazing job. I support your appointment to this position, and I look forward to working with you over the next few months in your capacity. Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilor D'Agostino.
I'll be quick. First, I want to say it's my pleasure to vote in favor of your nomination. I think you're going to do a great job. We had some opportunity to work together a little bit, and I found you to be professional, fair-minded, knowledgeable, and I think you're going to do a great job, so I'm really happy to see this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion is properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, we have the appointment of Taylor Harris of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Housing Authority as a commissioner for a 5-year term ending August 2028. Invited, Taylor P. Harris.
Good evening, Ms. Harris.
Good evening.
Would you have anything you'd like to say to the members of the council?
Sure. Brockton is where I have chose to raise my family. This is my hometown. I've lived in and out of Brockton over my lifetime. I have worked in the benefits world for 22 years, and helping people is the heart of what I do. Helping people on the benefit side. I've done both the financial side and the health and welfare. They do kind of run hand in hand, but just helping people and making sure they have what they need is really important. Housing is one of those things, so this is where I'd like to start.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Item number 5, we have the reappointment of Kenneth Galligan of Brockton, Mass. to the Traffic Commission as a commissioner for a 3-year term ending July 2026. Invited, Kenneth Galligan.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, councilors.
Got anything to say to the council?
Well, I will say I've been on the Traffic Commission for 30 years. I've gained a lot of experience and practical knowledge about the Traffic Commission and the operations of the city. I hope to take that experience that I've gained and use it over the next 3 years to help not only the citizens of the city, but everybody that's on the Traffic Commission. With that, I'll take any questions if you have any.
Questions? Motions?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
You have something on the motion, Councilor?
I just wanted to say something.
Councilor Minicello on the motion?
Chief, you, when I'm before you, you are so knowledgeable. I think you really bring a lot to that board, to that commission. And what's really nice is that some people will come forth and, they have something on their mind, or they think that it needs to be a certain way. But, because of your experience, you make suggestions, not to push someone off, but to actually get the job done in a manner that is more efficient or more appropriate than the party who's coming in that's agitated or excited about a certain issue. So we thank you for your service, but also for your demeanor when listening to people who are obviously in many cases upset about speeding or something bad happening or in their neighborhood or what have you. You really put yourself in the other person's shoes when you make your decisions, and I really respect that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's where spending time, amount of time that I've been on the commission and with the experience that I have, that sometimes when somebody comes in with an idea, there may be other ways of solving the problem. And that's what we try to do. We try to make everybody happy.
And there's no other hobby that you'd like to do at night, Chief?
Zoning board.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I got 30 years on the zoning board, too, so.
You've been on the Traffic Commission longer than me,
Appreciate
Chief.
it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Counselor. Motion's been properly made and
Just on the
seconded,
motion.
Councilors. On the motion,
And just
Counselor
quickly,
Thompson.
yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Chief, for your service to the city of Brockton. You just stated 30 years on the zoning board, which I had the pleasure of serving with you on, 30 years on the Traffic Commission, which I this year have the pleasure of serving with you on. Just your service to this community is kind of unparalleled, and so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you both for your service, for your mentorship, for your leadership. Brockton is in your debt, so thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Councilors, motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Item number 6, we have the reappointment of Tanya Tillman of Brockton, Mass. to the Elections Commission as a commissioner for a 4-year term ending July 2027. Invited, Tanya Tillman.
That
Good
is
evening,
aye.
Ms. Tillman. Councilor Farwell?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to table this reappointment for now. If any councilors have questions, or if Ms. Tillman has questions, they can contact the mayor's office. I have been in contact with the mayor's office today, as well as the city solicitor. And if at some point this comes off the table by vote of the council, that would be acceptable. But at this point, I would urge that we table this appointment,
Second.
this reappointment.
No debate.
Councilors, there's a motion and a second to table. All in favor?
Can we get a
of
roll
tabling?
call vote?
A roll call
Yes.
vote to table?
Yes.
All right, who's doing the roll? There's a roll call vote.
Bill.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Azak,
No.
D'Agostino,
Yes.
Farwell,
Yes.
Lally,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Minicello,
Yes.
Texera,
Yes.
Thompson,
No.
6 in the affirmative.
Item is tabled.
The item is tabled.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Tillman.
Thank you.
Item number 7, we have the reappointment of Ulysses M. Varela of Brockton, Mass. to the Parks and Recreation Commission as a commissioner for a 5-year term ending July 2028. Invited, Ulysses M. Varela.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Anything you want to say to the councilors, or?
Councilors, good evening. I just would like to say it's been an honor and privilege serving in this role as a commissioner on the Parks and Recreation. And with your blessing, I wish to continue to serve the great citizens of Brockton. I've sat on a number of committees outside of my role as commissioner on the parks. The Open Space and Recreations plan, I sat on that, and I'm currently sitting on the DW Field Initiative. So I fully promote, protect, and value the green space that we have in the city. And as I said, with your blessing, I would wish to continue to do so. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full
Second.
city council.
Motion's properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 8, ordered, move that the city council vote to authorize the mayor to petition the general court for a special act in the form set forth in the document entitled An Act Relative to the Police Cadet Program in the City of Brockton, which amends the state civil service rules that govern police department hiring by establishing a new preference for Brockton police cadets, provided, however, that the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the mayor approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court, and provided further that the mayor is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this position. See below, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives and General Court assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. An act relative to the police cadet program in the city of Brockton. Section 1. Notwithstanding the provisions of Chapter 31 of the general laws, any person who has completed not less than 2 years of service as a police cadet in the Police Department of the City of Brockton under the provisions of Section 21A of Chapter 147 of the general laws may, subject to a program established by the mayor of the city and approval by the Personnel Administrator of the State Division of Personnel Administration and the Massachusetts Police Training Committee, be appointed to fill a vacancy in a position in the lowest grade in the police force of said city without certification from an eligible list prepared under the provisions of Chapter 31 of the general laws, provided, however, that such person either is on a police entrance eligible list prepared under said chapter or passes a qualifying examination to be given by said personnel administrator. Such program shall include provisions for recruitment of applicants for appointment as police cadets in said city and for appointment from an eligible list prepared after a competitive examination administered under the supervision of the appointing authority of the City of Brockton. Section 2, if any federal or state administrative or court order requires the listing of candidates on separate groups, each group to be listed according to the law of the Commonwealth, then this act shall be subject to such listing. Section 3, not more than 33 1/3% of the total number of appointments to the regular police force of the City of Brockton in any calendar year shall be made under the provisions of this act. The appointing authority of the City of Brockton shall report in writing to the Personnel Administrator in said Division of Personnel Administration any appointment made under the provisions of this act. Section 4, the provisions of Section 61 of Chapter 31 of the general laws shall apply to appointments made under this act. A person appointed to the regular police force of the City of Brockton under the provisions of this act shall, after satisfactory completion of the probationary period, be deemed to be permanently appointed to said police force and subject to the provisions of Chapter 31 of the general laws. Section 5, this act shall take effect upon its passage. Invited, Sandy Chatton, Director of HR, Brenda Perez, Chief of Police.
Chief, Director, good evening.
Good evening, councilors. And thank you for this opportunity to speak about the cadet program and our request for the creation of a special act that would establish a preference for police cadets. The Brockton Police Department's cadet program has become an invaluable part of the police department's success. The cadets not only perform essential administrative duties, but also participate in countless community events. The goal of the cadet program has always been to provide essential training and opportunities for the young individuals of Brockton who are interested in a law enforcement career. We believe the cadet program has the potential to benefit both the police department and our community. It also provides us with a valuable source of potential recruits. I am proud to say that 2 of our initial cadets are currently recruits in the police academy. I respectfully request that you consider Mayor Sullivan's request to petition the General Court for an act relative to the police cadet program in the City of Brockton. By adopting this change, we aim to equip ourselves with a valuable tool that can be used selectively. This cadet exception will be reserved for those exceptional cases where it's deemed necessary to enhance our selection process. Its introduction does not diminish the importance of our existing practices, but rather adds a layer of flexibility and adaptability to our approach. I share in the city and the mayor's belief of Brockton jobs for Brockton kids, and I kindly request that your support for this petition. I'd like to take a moment to introduce Lieutenant Will Schleman, who is in charge of our cadet program currently, and will be speaking about the hiring process and the training that our cadets receive. Thank you.
Good evening, Lieutenant Schleman. I said good evening, Lieutenant Schleman.
Good evening, Counselor. All right. Like the Chief said, I'm Lieutenant Will Schleman. I supervise the cadet program for the Brockton Police Department. I have been a police officer for over 24 years, but I started my career in the 90s working as a police cadet for the Milton Police Department. My experiences there led me to work for the University of Massachusetts Police Department and for the past 20-plus years for the Brockton Police Department. I would like to share with you a little bit about the cadet hiring process. First, the cadet must fill out a lengthy 23-page application. They must pass a physical abilities test. They must pass a background check. They must then pass a medical and a psychological exam. The process is comparable to what a police officer candidate would have to complete. If we are going to invest our time in them, we want to ensure that they are able to pass these exams. Once hired, cadets are trained in a number of areas, including CPR, first aid, our Project Lifesaver program, where we can look for missing children or our vulnerable elder adults, the Criminal Justice Information System, our 3 software programs we use in-house at the police station, which is our Perform Dispatch, our records management system, and our Larimore system. They're trained to answer business phone lines. They are trained to answer emergency 911 calls and enter these calls into our computer systems. They handle reports from the public. Since our program requires the cadets reside in Brockton for 5 years prior to being hired, we have found them to have familiarity with and dedication to the community they serve. Their job duties allow them to experience what policing is by using a hands-on approach. Because cadets must complete 2 years of service with the police department before being eligible for this opportunity, we find that they are ready, prepared, and committed as they take the civil service exam to become Brockton police officers. Last October, 2 of our cadets, along with Sergeant Kevin Amaral, were asked to speak at the State House for a hearing in front of the State Police Cadet Commission to talk about the successes of the city's cadet program. We believe in this program and the positive effects it has, and want to give our cadets who have dedicated their efforts to the department an opportunity to grow. Regarding the impact that a cadet preference would have on hiring, I look back at the last 6 rounds of hiring dating back to 2017. As you all know, the hiring lists are ranked with disabled veterans at the top, followed by veterans, and then followed by non-veterans. During that time frame, 60 individuals were hired as police officers. Of those 60, 7 were disabled veterans, and 9 were veterans. The other 44 were non-veterans. In every instance, or every hiring process, there were equal to or more civilians hired than veterans and disabled veterans combined. On the current eligible list, there are 2 disabled veterans and 6 veterans. We are in the process of hiring 30 officers. I do not see any impact on the veteran community when it comes to the cadet hiring process, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about any of that.
Thank you. Counselor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Lieutenant, Chief, cadets. First of all, this is an amazing program. I'm happy to see it flourish, and I'm all about growing our own. These are Brockton, I don't want to call them kids, but they're Brockton residents that are moving into these positions. So I think this is amazing. I was going to ask about veterans. You answered that question, Lieutenant. Thank you. So this does not affect, doesn't affect the veterans that are applying for these jobs. So I really appreciate that. We all know how long it takes to get a home rule petition going. This is going to take a while. Are you prepared to kind of move it along? It's beyond the city council. We really need to advocate for this to get it moving. So are there things in place to get it moving on so it doesn't get, kind of stuck up at the State House?
Chief, I'll defer to you on that.
I'm figuring you've spoken to our state delegation.
Yes, we will be in the process of speaking to the state delegation, the mayor and I, if we receive your support here. So we are fully aware that it takes a long process and why we wanted to get the process started now because of the length of time it takes. But we fully intend to, sit down with them and, have these conversations with them and, hopefully
I think that's really important. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Chief, because I'd hate to see it kind of get stalled, and once again, we miss miss our moments. So whatever we can do on our end, I can, only speak for myself, but I'd be happy to help move this
Appreciate
along,
that.
because I've seen them in action. They're amazing young people that are really dedicated to the city, and this is what we need. So best of luck. I know I'll be supporting it, but with that, I don't know if anybody else.
We'll take all the help we can get. So
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilors and Lieutenant and Chief Perez, I had a long conversation with Chief Perez about this program. I absolutely support the cadet program. Everyone who's come to my house to deliver packets of information has been thoroughly professional, courteous, absolutely dressed appropriately, uniforms neat and clean. The only little tweaking of this that I feel is important is that we still maintain the preference for disabled veterans and veterans, whether it's only one disabled veteran or whether it's 2 or 3 veterans. If this were to be enacted by the legislature as we're presenting it, you could have a police cadet, however valuable he or she may be, with a score of 81. You could have a disabled veteran or a veteran, perhaps with significant military police experience, with a score of 95, and the police cadet would be ranked ahead of the veteran. And forgive me, folks, but when we have people go into the armed services and give up some of the best years of their life and put their lives on the line, I still think that counts for something. And again, I have absolutely no problem with this cadet program. I hope we expand it. I hope we fund it. But we want the best possible people, and we definitely want to have a preference for those who have gone into the military and who have put themselves out there in harm's way, and then for whatever reason they want to be a Brockton police officer. If they're a disabled vet or a veteran, I think they should be ranked at the top of the list, and then put our cadets in front of all of the other civilians that might have taken the test. And I would look to the HR director or the law department to give us that language if we do this that would be appropriate. And I don't have the language tonight. I could get it by the time this comes back to council, but I just wanted you to know the direction in which I'm going with this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lieutenant, you heard from Councilor Farwell. Could you speak to that issue that as this is written, if, let's say, I know right now we have a job opening for, I think it's 25 positions open, 35 to kind of start choosing from. 2 of them were disabled, 6 were veterans. So as of right now, it really wouldn't be an issue because there's plenty of room available. But I tend to agree with Councilor Farwell as someone who has served. Do you see this as something where, let's say, there only 3 positions were available and we had that same contingent, 2 disabled, 6 veteran? Would this program envision having one of those cadet preferences jump the line to say number 1 and push back a veteran or a disabled veteran?
So to answer your question, Counselor, they'd never be able to jump to number 1. They could at best hope to be number 3 if they got hired as a cadet with that preference. In my 20 years plus here at Brockton, I cannot recall hiring off a list that didn't get into civilians. From memory serves, we've always gotten to that civilian population. I went back, I crunched the numbers a little more in depth than what I presented earlier. I looked at how many disabled veterans were on these lists that we hired off going back to 2017, and how many actually came in and signed the list, said they'd be willing to accept a position if it were afforded to them or offered to them. In many cases, half, give or take a few, didn't come in and even sign the list expressing interest in it, to include the veterans and disabled veterans both. So I really don't see that. If history continues on, if the future carries on like history has, that should never happen. Only one of those 6 hiring processes where the veteran and disabled veterans numbers that were hired equal to the civilians. In all the others, the civilian hires vastly outnumbered the veterans that were hired.
So you tend to see this as kind of a preference on non-civilians and not veterans or the disabled veterans?
So this would be a preference to non-veterans, to
Right.
civilians, to bring them up. In a way, it's it's similar to a paid internship. We get to know the cadets.
Right.
Figure out if they're a good fit for us, and if we want them, we can have that opportunity to pull them up on the list and hire them.
Right, and I as you know, one of the city councilors who voted to enact the cadet program a few years ago, it was always kind of contemplated as this would be a feeder program into our Brockton PD. The fact that we see that happening is, makes this a valuable program. And like you were just saying, you have an opportunity for 2 years to view the work ethic, the professionalism, the mental acuity, the ability to work in groups. You have hands-on experience with these young men and women to decide, are they Brockton PD material? And so the fact that you're now talking about adding a preference, I think is reasonable, and I support the preference, and I'm glad that we're moving in that direction. I would be looking forward to seeing the language that Councilor Farwell would propose, because I also agree that I wouldn't want to see a cadet kind of bumping off a deserving veteran. And I know you say that doesn't really come into play often, but, in those smaller chances that it may in the future, then, that's something that we have to keep an eye on. But, I think this is a great program. I think the fact that we're going to add a preference is reasonable. I support that, and I appreciate you presenting tonight. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Agostino.
Yeah, so if I'm reading this right, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on it, you would be limited anyway to not hiring more than 33 1/3% of your hires in a given year through this program, assuming you had enough cadets to even come close to that, right?
Correct.
Like, there's limitations put already in place on what you can, or how much you can use this to hire cadets, and I think it makes sense too what you're saying. I mean, I spoke to the chief earlier as well. We're investing in these cadets, training them, and if we have some really good cadets, why would we want to let them go elsewhere? You said you participated in a program like this and didn't end up in that town. So they invested in you, trained you, and then they didn't get the benefit of that. So I certainly want to make sure that we don't end up with that same thing happening here, where we've invested in these young cadets and then off they go to some other community with that training and knowledge that we've helped them get here. And again, I mean, this is kind of self-limiting on the number of people you could hire through this, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely will, want to see the language that may come, at our next meeting. But again, I think this is a great program, a great opportunity, and anything I can support to help you guys get the staff you need, I'm certainly going to support. And I'll make a motion to recommend favorably to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's properly. Has anyone who has not spoken yet want to speak? Councilor Minicello, and if there's no one else, then we'll go back to second round.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I definitely support this type of a program. We did it in the schools with a program with teachers. We saw the value in having people from the community interactive and coming back in professional positions, and definitely that started, and we saw really nice benefits from it. Can't we move this forward with a qualifier, basically with some qualifying requirement that a preference shall be granted so long as it does not.
So I think, Counselor, to your question, Counselor Farwell would like that kind of language, but he wants the time and advice of our legal counsel to prepare it. we would be able to amend this if we so chose at council when it returns to the full council for a final vote.
So can we move it forward with that qualifying language, that language needs to be worked out with the law department?
It would be a tricky motion. I think what we could do is we could move it forward with the understanding that there are councilors on the body who would not vote for it in its current form in a final vote. I think would be the best way to go about it. If you simply said, you'd move it forward, but you wouldn't pass it without some provision in there looking out for the veterans, then the sponsors of the act are aware of that. Mr. Clerk, do you have something else?
Based on the conversation tonight, I already have a note to get an opinion from the law department. I believe from a conversation that I had with the law department earlier on this, that protection is already in here when it talks about certain sections of the state law. So I think that protection is already in there, but I am not telling you that without getting a written opinion from the law office. But what I would recommend is, instead of changing, is just, if you wanted to push it forward and before final vote, I'll have that written opinion from the law department answering those questions.
Can we invite the law department to appear that evening?
We can. They may not need to. I mean, again, from a brief conversation I've had with them, I believe those protections are already in the language, but I don't want to tell you what section 21A of chapter 147 is, but I think that is what is the protection in there. So I would recommend, if you want to move it forward, you still have the opportunity to either postpone it at final, if they haven't gotten us the answer that is, but I'll get a written opinion from the law office on that, on whether the cadet program would supersede the disabled veterans and veterans. I don't believe it would, but that was a brief conversation that we had.
So several councilors have expressed their will that they would like to see that document, that clarified, and if it's not the case, in a potential amendment drafted. That is all, and possibly the presence of the city solicitor and our
You
council
could have the city solicitor there and discuss with her that night.
That is all, that's stuff that the clerk will have and that I will pass on to President Nicastro for her return next week. So all that stuff can be prepared for the next city council meeting.
Great. I just think it would be good to have the law department there in case some questions come up. Yeah, thank you. Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Anyone who hasn't spoken? Councilor Farwell on the motion.
Just very quickly, I did speak with the solicitor today, and she did not see a problem with having something incorporated so that we make sure we never lose a disabled veteran or a veteran to an appointment. But I might be able to clear this up tonight just by asking the chief a question, because she's been in the military for quite a few years. We had a long conversation today. Notwithstanding our earlier conversation, are you comfortable with how this is written? Because if you are, I'll be comfortable with it. You're in charge of the department, and you should have our support.
Yes, I am.
Right. So you and I will still be all right. We don't have to worry about what we talked about this morning.
I am confident that this will be a tool that the department can use, and that it would be used on those exceptional cases where cadets are basically found to be deserving of, we're able to vet them. And I think that, historically, we went back, like the lieutenant said, and we haven't had an issue with not going, we've always gone into the civilian list, so we've not, I don't think that that's going to be an issue moving forward either. So I am comfortable that this would not be an issue.
Thank you. And one last favor. Don't have Schleiman come in again, because I used to be that thin back when I was 18 years old. And then the political chicken circuit took over, and now you can see what happened. So I came up in the elevator with him, and I said, boy, would I like to go back. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Got nothing for that. Thank you, though.
At least at one point you were that tall, Counselor. There's a motion on the floor properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Chief. Thank you,
Thank you,
Lieutenant.
Chief. Thank you,
Cadets.
Lieutenant.
Madam Director.
Thank you, cadets.
Item number 9, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the amount of $2,500 from Northeastern Savings Bank, $1,000, from Eastern Bank, $1,500, to the Brockton Police Department, $2,500. The donation will be used for the First Responders Community Jamboree. Invited, Brenda Perez, Police Chief, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Chief.
I feel like I was just here. Good evening, councilors. This donation was given to the police department as for the Public Safety Jamboree. We held it, I believe it was August 19th, where we had the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, we had ambulance, we had Mass State Police, and it was just a fun day for our residents, for our kids, to basically interact with our public safety personnel. So it was great. It was a great one. It was a great day. It was a great weather. We didn't get the helicopter. However, everything else was a great day. We had many donations from the school department, so it was a fun day. So this is what that money's for.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Motion's been properly made. I need a second. Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Chief, and please thank all involved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Number 10, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the form of 68 cases of water totaling approximately $1,404 from Christopher County, C County Environmental, to the Brockton Fire Department. Invited, Brian Nardelli, Fire Chief, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
A lot of chiefs today.
How about that, huh? Good evening, Chair. Good evening, councilors. How is everyone? This is a donation that Mr. Connie's given us the last few years. He drops them off at most of the stations. It actually helps out a lot. I'm a true believer in hydrating before the incident, not trying to hydrate during the incident. So this has been a great reward that he's passed on to us, drops them off. I usually find out in the dead of night that they're already dropped off. I don't get much warning, but it's nice to have as something for our members in the stations.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full City Council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 11, ordered that the City of Brockton hereby accepts a recoverable grant in the amount of $125,000 through Mass Development's Site Readiness Grant Funds to be used to improve site readiness on property located in the vicinity of the Good Samaritan Medical Center. 824 Oak Street, Brockton, the site for the potential development of a new life science center. It is further ordered that if any city-owned portion of the site is sold, conveyed, gifted, demised, ground leased, or otherwise transferred, or refinanced, and as a result of said transaction, the city receives funds that exceed the aggregate amount necessary for repayment of existing monetary liens, mortgage loans, and other debt on the project, and all of the costs incurred by them in the acquisition, development, ownership, and sale of the site or a portion of the site, then the city shall reimburse Mass Development the full amount of the net proceeds up to the amount of the recoverable grant that has been dispersed and has not already been repaid to Mass Development. The mayor is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said recoverable grant, including the expenditure thereof. Invited, Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening, councilors. I'm very pleased to be here with you again to discuss the acceptance of this grant program. This is the second grant that we've received from Mass Development for this site. You might remember that 2 years ago we started a master planning process for the area. We worked with a lot of the property owners and stakeholders to develop a master plan for the area. We're now at a point that we can then move forward to begin an urban renewal and rezoning of that area to match this community vision. That, of course, will all come back to you for your acceptance and approval. With regard to this being a recoverable grant, the last grant that we received for them for this site was also a recoverable grant. You may see in your packet, we're referring to a piece of property on Newland Road, or Newland Street. It's a small, tiny little piece of property. I'm looking in the in the camera over there, that the city owns in the middle of this whole redevelopment project. That is the property that, when sold, would trigger a repayment of the grant, provided that the expenses exceeded the actual sales price of the property. It very rarely does. So that is how we handle grants from Mass Development. So I hope that you all be able to support this, and Councilor Minicello and I will be able to ramp this up rather quickly.
All right, thank you, Mr. Director. Councilor D'Agostino, followed by Councilor Thompson.
Just a quick question. You said this is the second grant,
Yes,
right?
sir.
And just refresh my memory. I apologize for not recalling. How much was the first one?
The first one was $125,000 also.
Okay. All right. So that was the first one. Can you go back? You said something at the end of your comment that I thought was interesting. Something about it selling for more than the purchase price or something, and that was rare. Could you just back up that?
The state, the way that the grants are set up as recoverable grants are established that way by the legislature. What Mass Development does is it's an accounting process. We have a similar process with, God, I forgot the name of the building, but also with this particular area. Sorry, I can't.
Corrigan.
Yeah. Building. That if the costs exceed the revenue, or if the revenue doesn't generate enough money to pay off the grant, it's wiped clean.
Okay, but in our case, if I picked up on that right, I'm just sorry, it jumped out at me. It sounded like this.
The revenue from this particular tiny 40-foot wide lot is going to be nowhere near the recoverable value of these two grants.
It's going to exceed it, or it's going to be well below?
It'll be below.
Okay, right, and okay, that just like I said,
they don't expect their money back.
I don't mean to make a big deal out of nothing. It was just the way you said it. I was like, wait, what did he just say?
And I may have said that backwards. I apologize.
And I think
I'll have
that's
to listen to the tape.
Probably what jumped out at me is maybe you said it backwards, and I was like, wait a minute. All right, never mind. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson, followed by Councilor Minicello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. May.
Good evening, sir.
So this is the Levitt Brook development, is that?
Yes, sir. We call this area Levitt Brook. That is correct.
Okay, so this is, we had, I remember the original $125,000 grant, and that was basically for planning purposes, right?
Correct.
And so I know we always put percentages on plans. Did that bring us to a 50% plan, or,
that's a very good comparison. Unlike transportation documents, transportation plans, where you create a 25, a 75, and 100%, getting to PS&E, plan specifications, and estimates.
Yeah.
These planning documents are in a similar method, but they're not, each one can stand alone by itself. So we have a plan that creates a vision for the area. What happens with the Urban Renewal District, it gives the redevelopment authority the authority to implement that plan, and the zoning then comes from you all, is what matches the vision to make sure that what is happening on the site is what identified in the master plan. So they're three legs of the same stool, but they all stand independently of each other, but without all three of them, you're wobbling.
So the original 125 kind of helped develop a master plan. This monies will help develop it further so that it can be accepted as an urban renewal plan.
Correct.
And then help get us through that process of urban renewal.
And rezoning.
And the rezoning.
For your consideration.
And essentially, I know through conversations, we're looking at a biomedical campus.
Yes, sir.
For this property. Great. And this is also, just for information, this is also a opportunity zone, correct?
Yes, it is.
So I just think this is a great area. It's next to the highway, it's next to a hospital. We've been talking about Leverett Brook for a while, the redevelopment of it. I know we worked on the zoning, the new C5 zone to include these biomedical uses in the city of Brockton. So I think I'm glad to see this process moving forward, and I hope that we'll have a full master plan ready for URP, ready for rezoning within the next year, you would say?
Yes, sir.
Great. We appreciate your work on this matter. Thank you, Mr. May. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Minicello.
Just to piggyback on some of the things that Councilor Thompson just said, would you not agree then that this would be a harmonious use with respect to the current?
Yes, very harmonious. We are, and Good Samaritan Medical Center does sit on the advisory committee that was creating the master plan. They will continue to be on that. They are also in communication with the REIT that owns the property, so we're all heading in the same direction. Their current plans for an expansion on their campus conforms to what we've identified in the master plan. So they've been able to take this document and work it into their next phase of development. So I'm very excited to see that.
So there's obvious support for it from that community?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. And this would also, some of the changes that we've been trying to make and we have made to zoning, it seems that with respect to the zoning changes that the City Council is involved with and has been involved with and has changed, it seems that this would also be a good fit.
They go along nicely with each other. Of course, what we would like to do is to adjust the zoning for that whole area because it's a hodgepodge of different things right now, and we want to tailor it to what is exactly there. It's kind of the same process that we're going through in the Campello neighborhoods right now, in Ward 4 and Ward 3, where the community has developed a vision and we're going literally block by block. How do we then implement that?
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All set, Counselor?
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 12, voted in accordance with general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the tax increment exemption agreement between the city and CMK Development Partners for the property located at 157 Center Street. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, John O'Donnell, Chairman Board of Assessors, Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, Jonathan DePina, 157 Center Street LLC, and Wilton Ribeiro, 157 Center Street LLC.
Chief Financial Officer, I'm counting that as another chief.
That's for today.
Yes, indeed. Good evening,
You got it.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Mr. May and Mr. O'Donnell are here. Mr. DePina and Mr. Ribeiro are not able to be here for medical reasons, but Kerry Jordan, who is a colleague of theirs and intimately familiar with the project, is here and can answer questions. So I'll just start off, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. You have approved several of these in the downtown area in the last several years. This one conforms with what Mayor Sullivan has approved, and that is a 60% increment for 10 years. I did send you a spreadsheet over the weekend for this and for the one that follows that detail the finances of what this tie looks like and what its impact is on the finances of the city. And simply put, if we do nothing and leave the building or the property as is, it will continue to yield roughly $12,000 a year in taxes. With the increment, so with this tax incentive, it will increase to anywhere from slightly less than $19,000 to slightly less than $21,000 a year during the increment. So even though we are abating a portion of the taxes to encourage this development, the income will still be greater than it is now. And at the end of this 10-year exemption, we expect the property to produce greater than $40,000 a year in taxes. So as I've said to you many times, I believe there is no downside to a tie agreement because we're encouraging investment in the city, we're creating new value, We are sharing a portion of that value, but the city never receives less in tax revenue than it's receiving now. Happy to answer any questions, and the proponent or my colleagues can answer any specific questions on the project.
Councilors, Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Mr. Clarkson. I read the documents, and I think you explained them clearly about, the benefit of the tie and, the numbers involved, so I appreciate that. I was hoping that we could give Madam from 157 7th Street, Center Street to come forward. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
This is a Ward 5 building. I believe, I had the opportunity to walk the building with Mr. DePina. Yes. Really what he's trying to do there is a great use for this old factory building. It's essentially something that's being done throughout the city of Brockton, but I believe his passion for this project was evident, and I know he really wants to get this done. I think I was at the zoning board when you were there presenting this plan for a variance, and I believe it was just to extend your existing variance. But could you just, for the public's benefit, for this council's benefit, kind of tell us how many apartment units, what's the breakdown of ones and twos, and then this is, from my understanding, a fully market rate building, is that correct?
It is. It's 24 residential apartments that so 157 Center Street was a vacant building for those that aren't familiar with our building. It had been vacant for a number of years, and when we purchased it, we proposed and were allowed to convert it into 24 residential apartments. We have passed everything, and we have started to build, and we have the 2 bedrooms that are going in, we have off-site parking, full turn radius for the public safety.
And I remember during that zoning board, there was some conversations with you and one of the trustees from the adjacent building. I haven't followed up, and I apologize, but have those conversations, you were able to come to some accommodations there?
Yeah, I think we, that committee and us, we've met. I had met with them personally on site, and we continue to have a conversation. There wasn't a large abundance. We had kind of already had the answers to the questions that they were proposing. So we had a mutual agreement and haven't had any conflict in any manner with them.
Great. Well, I'm glad you took the opportunity to speak with them and have that conversation. We want to be good neighbors here in Brockton, so I appreciate those efforts. So I drive by this building all the time. I see that there are, new windows. I know you did some kind of mortar work. Yep. So there's been some external work. Obviously, there's work going on the inside. Yeah. But when are we close to completion? When do we see occupancy, or what are we? What are we doing there?
Completion would be soon. We've been delayed quite a bit just based on our process of what we had to go through. But we're moving right along. We've got a lot of the framing up. We just got our drywall delivered. We've got, subcontractors coming in regards to some other things that we still have to finalize in regards to the elevator company, which company is going to do it, and so on and so forth. But hopefully, we're hoping within the next 8 months, 6.
Summertime next year-ish?
Yeah, we're hoping. And that's what we're rooting for, so.
Great. Well, I think this is a great addition to our downtown. It's going to be a good location, walking distance, both, to the train, to the BAT bus. Do you know what you're going to call this? Have we figured that out?
It's the 157, I call it the 157 Center Street project. But we haven't named it yet, so we're up for bids. Anybody wants to give some ideas? I think we're pretty much open to it.
Well, I'd say ask that gentleman in the back over there, Joe. He's got great names for buildings.
Awesome, Joe.
So, yeah. So I appreciate you being here. I support the tie agreement. I think it benefits the city of Brockton to both have this agreement and this building in our downtown. And I wish your crew and Mr. DePina tremendous success here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell.
Yes, very quickly, just for the CFO, I support this tie, and I support the next one. I'm just going to sound a bit of caution that things can change very rapidly in the city, and I think we need to be extremely strategic going forward on these tie agreements and not getting full revenue coming into the city. I'm not going to expand on that. You probably know what I'm talking about, but every dollar that granted, we invest in economic development by these ties, but the aggregate amount of money, and Mr. O'Donnell is working on it for me, the aggregate amount of money that this city has lost through ties, I think is going to be a pretty staggering amount. And again, between you and me and the mayor and others, let's just make sure that every single one we do is very carefully thought out.
Understood.
Because we are giving up revenue. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, the motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Motion's been properly made. I need a second.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 13, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending that the City Council approve the tax increment exemption agreement between the City of Brockton and Ringside Properties, LLC for the property located at 40 Petronelli Way. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, John O'Donnell, Chairman of the Board of Assessors, Rob May, Director of Planning and Economic Development, Troy Claxon, Chief Financial Officer, and Joseph Goncalves, Ringside Properties, LLC.
Good evening, Mr. CFO.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. Again, Mr. O'Donnell and Mr. Mayor here to answer any questions. Mr. Goncalves is in the back of the room and happy to answer any questions specific to the project as well. Like the previous tie agreement that we just discussed a few moments ago, if left vacant, this property will yield approximately $7,600 per year in tax revenue. Once the project is complete, with the exemption in place, it will generate anywhere from $21,000 to $24,000 a year in tax revenue. At the conclusion of this tie agreement, we anticipate that this project will generate more than $50,000 per year in taxes.
Motion to recommend favorably.
On the motion.
Sorry, I didn't know if we were continuing. Councilor Thompson had something on the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, good evening, Mr. Clarkson. And again, I appreciate you presenting those numbers. My questions are for Mr. Goncalves.
Good evening, councilors.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Very well. How are you?
Good, great. So just kind of some of the same. This is a Ward 5 building. We've been working on this building for quite a while now, last couple of years. We really had to get the property lines itself squared away before we could, really enable you to build the beautiful building that's going to go on there. I've seen the plans for it. We were together at the ZBA on it. This is going to be an amazing building, all market rate building. But could you tell a little bit about the building? How many units? What's the breakdown of ones and twos? What do you see on this property?
So the Ringside residence is going to be a 50-unit market rate property that's going to have 2- and 1-bedroom mixtures. I first want to really give a shout out to everyone working with the city when it came to this project. The initial plot of land was not designed for a project of this size. Working with DPW, the assessor's office, every department in here working together to actually make the best use of this urban infill. It's a vacant it's a parking lot that's very little used, and I think what we proposed here with the conjunction and collaboration with everybody in this room and everybody in City Hall, I just really want to kind of put that out there. It was just a great experience as a developer to come into a city, I'm from the city, but coming into the city and really being supported by that, I just want to really put that out there. Outside of that, it is going to be a market rate residence. It's going to have co-working space, a gym space. It's going to have surface parking. We're going to be utilizing some of the parking from the Bill Carpenter garage. We are looking to attract the working professional. We have done that successfully at 19 Main Street. The building is thriving. We're actually up on our first renewal for next month. There's going to be a first renewal for lease renewals, and as of thus far, 100% of people are looking to stay in the building. So there is a demand, there is a drive for it, and we're just so excited to continue to invest in the fabric of the downtown and hopefully be another catalyst property to keep it more of a vibrant, walkable, and presentable downtown. So new vision and our vision for these projects, we're looking to be here for a very long time, and trying to really kind of, put our footprint on the downtown district, so.
Well, you've definitely done that. Your original building on Main Street is gorgeous, and we appreciate the continued, investment in our city. I was going to ask about, we said Ringside Apartments. I mean, that's why I love the name. I think it's a great name. Tell me about, obviously, when are we going to have shovels in the ground? When do you expect completion? Give an idea of when this building will be occupied.
So our perspective, as you know, it's with interest rates in the markets that are currently going on. As you know, this was almost a 3-year process to get to this point. I have actually purchased the lots, and we're going for the tie, and we're working on our capital stacks. Financing does look a lot different than, again, it did look 2 to 3 years ago, but our objective is to be shovel ready within the next 12 months. This is a very imperative piece. Most lending institutions want to make sure that the municipality is vested in the project, and by providing this tie, it's showing different, lending institutions that the city is really behind this. So to answer your question, we are looking within the next 12 months to be shovel ready. It's an 18 to 24 month process to actually construct the entire building. It needs a ton of brownfield remediation, so it's not it's an urban site. So just the urban fill that we have there is pretty toxic. So again, that's going to be a pretty lengthy process, but we have that all, under control and understanding it, but again, it's not just, building a building and going. Right. So we just want to take that into consideration, so.
Again, thank you for your continued investment in Brockton. This is going to be a great building, and I support this tie, and I ask everybody else to vote for it. If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve favorably.
Second.
I think I had something on the motion from Councilor Minichiello.
Just wanted to say that I've viewed your apartments. We've gone through them together. They're beautiful buildings. Many employees here in the city, professionals in the city, occupy them. You do not cut corners. You go the distance, basically, and are really adding to the housing stock and making the downtown area very attractive. I would say, this is sort of the renaissance that Worcester, Quincy, Lowell, in terms of neighborhoods are doing, and this is really good for Brockton. Yep. And you're really doing a nice job, and those are really quality units.
Definitely appreciate that. So definitely honored to be part of it, though. So.
Thank you. All right, there's a motion properly made and seconded on the floor. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goncalves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 14, resolved to invite Mr. Matt Stanton, Chair of the Mayor's Brockton Beautification Committee, to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss the committee's work, including an upcoming fall cleanup challenge and other related issues. Invited Matt Stanton, Chair of the Beautification Committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. We have about, just sit back, we have about an hour and a half presentation.
We'll
try and make it real quickly. I'd like to recognize Peg Kearney over here, who is also on the Beautification Committee, for joining me tonight. We've had a few meetings, we've had a few cleanups. Some of you probably see them on Facebook. I stand on the shoulders of giants. They're out there almost every day. Quite a few of the members. Linda P., Kelly Hanlon, Peg, the Garden Club has been wonderful. The other, Councilor Thompson, who sits on the committee as well. Who am I missing? Sharifa, Shelley Jackson, myself, and the wonderful work of Pat Hill and Pat Sullivan from the city side. It's been great. And during the course of our meetings, we've kind of come up with a little, kind of throw it back at you. Here we are in September. We've scheduled a cleanup for September 23rd, but who knows the wards better than the ward councilors? I am in Ward 3 now, so I don't know what's going on in Ward 6 or 7. You would be able to tell us what needs to be cleaned up in 6. So we are kind of challenging you guys to, on the 23rd of September, you can set up your own times if you like. A lot of people had been questioning, what time was it going to start or anything like that. Feel free to set up your own times if you like. You can get all the supplies down from Mr. Sullivan down at the refuse and recycle. Get as many people from your ward as you can out and about. If they want to pick one area and do it, if some want to pick up street, get engaged in the neighborhoods. I mean, I know myself, I've been doing a lot of walking, and I keep, there's a bag of trash in my trunk right now. I got a blue bag in there, and I put one in my recycle bin yesterday, so now there's only a few coffee cups in the one in the trunk right now, but it'll get full. We started in June. We did the East Middle School, and here we are, let's say 2 months later, a little over 2 months later, and I just saw yesterday and today that Kelly, Linda, Judy Sullivan, Tim Sullivan, a couple other people were over there, and the amount of trash that has accumulated in, roughly 2 months, 9 weeks probably, amazes me. They posted pictures of areas that I had cleaned out every last scrap of trash, and it is just back there and then some. We also wanted to discuss possibly moving towards like the holiday season. If anybody out there, and the Garden Club has been great offering their help, get people involved. And what gets people involved? Holidays. Brockton is beautiful, it's diverse. There are many different cultures, many different holidays that are celebrated. If we could maybe think of decoration contests, just something to engage people. That's really what we're looking for. I know how it is in my neighborhood. We know each other. We clean the storm drains. We talk. We converse. We make sure it looks all right. We'd like more of that. We know Brockton residents are fantastic. They take pride in their homes. They take pride in their neighborhoods. And I think if they hear it more from us, from you, from anybody and everybody, we could really make a difference.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Stanton, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here tonight. Peg, thank you for being here. We appreciate your leadership on the Beautification Committee. Can you talk maybe a little bit more about this neighborhood cleanup? Because I think that's a great idea.
We were thinking that the idea was batted around the ward challenge, pretty much. We were trying to come up with something that would engage the residents and yourselves. And like I said, I grew up in Ward 7. I'm now in Ward 3, so I don't know what needs to be cleaned up in Ward 7, anymore. I drive through there or something like that. I might have an idea.
Right.
But,
I think, sometimes we say, all right, let's have an event, let's clean this place, or let's clean that place. The fact that we, as ward councilors and city councilors, can try to, organize our own ward-specific cleanup, because like you said, we are the eyes and ears of our neighborhoods. And so if we can get out as many community members within the ward to identify a location or multiple locations throughout the wards, to really do some cleanup. We have a beautiful city, but it just tends to get dirty, especially during the summer. Winds blowing, trash is accumulating. We probably don't have the level of respect for our community that it deserves. I see people dumping all the time. It's disheartening. But we as community leaders, as people who love this city, should take some time and effort throughout the year to help clean up. And so, this September 23rd is a challenge. It's a challenge to us as city councilors, as a challenge to the people of the city, to really, spend an hour, 2 hours, 10 minutes to walk your neighborhood, find some trash, pick it up. A little bit goes a long way. So we appreciate you putting that event together. Is there any expectation for another Make Brockton Beautiful Day? I know we've discussed that. Is that something we've...
Yeah, I believe we will be working to that end when weather permitting, obviously. I mean, I know this year we had it in May. This is my first year as on the committee and as chairman. So I'm not sure when the next one, full day. We kind of saw this as a full day,
Right.
just spread across, whereas before, we all met up at, Heights Crossing, and got a list, or got our bags, got our things,
Right.
and went out from there. This way, it could kind of start in the wards. Nobody would have to go all the way across town to pick up bags and a picker or whatever, and then head back home. That's 45 minutes. That's
Right.
45 minutes that they could have been
Right.
picking stuff up.
Right. And this is something that doesn't even require any organization. Any individual can be empowered just to walk their neighborhood with a bag, which I do often, and pick up the trash that they find. Now, Beautification Committee, so that's held, when's the next one?
Our next meeting is September 20th,
September 20th.
5 p.m.
And it's our intention to kind of hold one once a month, correct? And it's open to the public. It's held here.
And visitors, we've had Pastor Roberto from the Universal Missionary Church had a representative come to our last meeting. She was fantastic. They want to help.
Right. So these meetings are held around, what, 5:30?
5:30, I believe.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in the JAR room. I think any resident who's interested in this topic, in the beautification of our city, please come join us. Add your thoughts, add your talent, your ability, and if we work together, we can really make Brockton the city it deserves to be. So again, I appreciate your leadership. Thank you,
I think
Matt.
we had come up with the slogan of "Better Brockton begins with you."
Right.
For the committee, it's just
Exactly.
organic. It just kind of flowed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors, or do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Mr. Stanton?
Thank you very much.
Rest of the committee?
What time is it?
8:16.
Okay.
I'm holding the
Dominic, get
gavel.
ready. You got to hop in the shower, pal, because bedtime's early tonight.
Right.
Everybody who has children, good day at school tomorrow.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't do my homework.
Dog ate it.
Yeah, dog ate it. All right, counselors, that's the end of our agenda. Do we have any moments of personal privilege? Counselor Farwell.
Just a reminder to the Public Safety Committee that we will be meeting here in Council Chamber tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. on September 6th here in the Council Chamber. Public Safety, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Minicello.
And also another announcement, we have a meeting on Thursday. Economic Development Subcommittee will be here in the chambers as well, at 6 o'clock, 6 to whenever.
Perfect. Thank you. Counselor Azak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to wish all our Brockton students and their families a very great, happy first day of school tomorrow, and wish them all a really great year. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other items, we are adjourned.